So, would love to welcome you all here today and thank you for joining. Our webinar today is going to be around beyond dashboards and being able to build a complete ML pipeline with Spotfire and Statistica. And we are really excited to have you here today to explore how we're going to get the two working together to deliver a truly unified analytics and AI platform. And that's really what this is about. And cool demos. Any of you that deal with data on a daily basis and know how much duplicate data you find, one of the demos is going to be on data deduplication and how simple this tool can do, as well as a very interesting predictive model. So let's get started. I would like to do some introductions very quickly. So I'm Amanda Summers. I'm the Director of Client Engagement, and I'm based in Calgary, Alberta, up here in Canada. And I'm co-presenting today with Kelly Blair, who is a Senior Data Specialist and Certified Trainer, and she's based out of Denver, Colorado. So our agenda today, we're going to include Spotfire and Statistica working together as a complete end-to-end analytics solution or platform, as I had mentioned. And you're going to see how Spotfire supports powerful data exploration and some visualizations, while Statistica brings the advanced machine learning capabilities to build, validate, and operationalize models. We'll give you an overview of and go into a bit of a deeper dive of its overall capabilities and how it integrates into your environment. As I mentioned, we'll also give you those live demonstrations on the data deduplication and the predictive modeling. And just as a note, we have several clients here today from several different industries. And although our demos are a little bit more focused on the oil and gas side, they're very, very applicable for manufacturing and tech, life sciences, and pharmaceuticals as well. So keep that in mind as we're going through here today. We had to pick one data set, and that was the data set we went to go with. And finally, if you would like, and you have any questions throughout the presentation, please post them in the chat and we will endeavor to answer them throughout the session here today. So Kelly, do you want to share a little bit on Spotfire Industry Pro?
Absolutely. So thank you very much, Amanda, and hello to everybody out there on the internet, as the case may be. So I don't know how familiar everybody is with Spotfire, but Spotfire recently released recently, I guess it was back in November, but time goes by so quickly these days. But they released their latest LTS, which is Spotfire 14.6. Prior to that, actually back in late spring, early fall, they released 14.5, at which point they introduced something what was originally referred to as data science, Spotfire Data Science. That name has now been changed to kind of better align with what its purpose is, but it's now being called Spotfire Industry Pro. And there are some really, really cool things that came with this. There was actually quite some time between LTSs. The previous one to that was 14.0, and we were actually expecting this LTS to come out even 6 months earlier, but I will say it was worth the wait. And in particular, for certain verticals, Spotfire has really shown a commitment to supporting those. So for example, oil and gas, when we're looking at the oil and gas pieces, as you can kind of see at the bottom of this little slide here, they have some industry-specific visualizations and mods that now, instead of having to go out to the community to get those mods, you can actually get them through the Industry Pro version of Spotfire directly, and they are actually supported by Spotfire. So there's several mods that are part of that. There's also, for those of you that might be more in manufacturing or life sciences, they have added some additional visualization support or increased functionality. So for example, with box plots, we now, rather than just seeing the standard box and whatever measurements we're trying to represent, median and such in there, it actually will give us, show us the actual markers within those boxes. Or as you can see in the upper left of this screenshot, we have a violin plot that overlays on top of that. So you can get a better feeling for the distribution of those values. If you look towards the middle of the screenshot, directly above where it says Spotfire Industry Pro, you'll see that we have reference elements. So there's been a few clients that I've worked with over the last couple of years where we've really struggled to get some of those reference elements overlaid on top of things, and this greatly simplifies that. We've got that reference element in there. There's some other things like built-in data functions, which are not really mentioned on this slide, but they've added those in to provide support for like things like time series alignment, geo analytics types things. There's some built-in connectors. So for those of you in oil and gas, there's actually now in Industry Pro a built-in Esri ArcGIS connector. Also, for those of you that find you have to do a lot of switching between different formats, from tall and skinny to maybe wide and shorter. Now we don't have to actually do that and create these additional tables with all of that merged. We now can do relationships between those tall, skinny tables against our wide data tables as well. So there's a lot of really nice things here. I really feel like this has kind of taken Spotfire to the next level. In particular, there's a new feature that we're going to focus on today, which is Statistica. And Statistica used to be a separate application. I had an opportunity to work with it back when I was with TIPCO a few years back, and it's one of my favorite things, and I was really missing it. So I'm so happy that Spotfire has brought it into here, and that's where we're going to be focusing our time. So we want to just provide a little bit of context. So if you decide to go to the Industry Pro route, it is going to give you that ability to use the Statistica piece. So we want to show you how you can integrate those two together. One other thing before I turn it back to Amanda, I just kind of want to talk a little bit, for those of you that maybe have a bit of a data science background, you may be familiar with this analytics maturity kind of curve that we often see. But for those of you that aren't, when we think about Spotfire by itself, it does a really good job of levels 1 and 2. We can bring in a lot of data and understand what has happened, kind of looking at our historical data, and even get into some of that diagnostic understanding, trying to understand not just what has happened, but why did it happen? With statistics, even further and go beyond what has happened and start to predict what is likely to happen, and even potentially how can we guide it and make it happen the way we want it to happen. So it's going to really take us further up the maturity curve here to that more prescriptive analytics level rather than just descriptive and diagnostic. Not to downplay that, because Spotfire is I've loved Spotfire for about a decade now. I've gotten to work with it, and this just brings a whole nother level to it though. So Amanda, I'm going to hand it back to you for the moment, and you can talk a little bit about, yep. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. So what is Statistica? A lot of people aren't familiar with it. It used to be a completely separate tool in the Spotfire toolbox, but it has now been included into the Industry Pro licensing, which is really fantastic because it's got a lot of capability. So typically what we find is organizations often build analytics and AI capabilities tool by tool. And if you look at the market today, there are a ton of tools out there you can choose from everything from JMP, just coding, to Data Robot and other tools that are available on the market. You'll have one for data prep, another for modeling, another for deployment, and another for governance. So the problem is tool sprawl. What starts as kind of being flexible quickly becomes complex and very costly. Each tool has its own interface, governance model, and integration needs, driving up costs and the total cost of ownership. So the impact is that the teams spend more time integrating tools than generating insights, and governance becomes really inconsistent across the enterprise, and scaling is difficult in a fragmented model like that, because you're constantly trying to figure out how to get everything connected and working together. So the alternative, and what Statistica really brings, is a unified platform, which allows you to do all your data prep, all your modeling, your deployment, governance, and your visualization in one platform, which makes it a very useful tool. And so it's not to say you can't use other tools, but for the way the world is going with citizen development, with people trying to get better, trying to get AI strategies in place, a platform like this really gets you hitting the ground and running. So it really reduces kind of overall from that perspective, the complexity, and then ultimately lowers costs and gives you better time to value. So the teams or your teams can quickly scale up and do that. And if your analytics stack feels fragmented today, moving to a platform can streamline your overall operations and make it much more simplified for you. So Spotfire and Statistica, just kind of a little bit of an overview here, really gives you that governed operational analytics. It covers that full life cycle, right? The visualization, the modeling, the deployment, and the hosting of the actual model itself. It's designed for regulated industries and real-time operational use, and is very, very, like we said before, usable in oil and gas and energy. It's usable in manufacturing and tech. It's also really useful in life sciences and pharmaceuticals, where you're really trying to scale up programs and AI initiatives. So how do we consider a platform? And there's different key things, because there's a lot of things to consider out there. As I said, a lot of tools on the market, a lot of platforms on the market, and everybody's saying they can do AI. Everyone's saying they can do ML. So how do you look when you're looking for a platform? Well, Statistica is really fully integrated. So everything is integrated into one single platform, from the data prep, the deployment, with a single environment. So you're not going across tool to tool to tool. And it delivers that built-in governance that you might be looking for. And everybody knows how difficult it is to achieve a great governance model. And it's really designed to be at scale and seamlessly integrates into the Spotfire, meaning that deployment, that modeling, that deployment, and then that visualization overall, and really gives you the dashboards and your citizen developers the ability to leverage that quite quickly and easily. So I think that kind of covers the slides, and I want Kelly now to go into a little bit more detail on Statistica before we get into the demonstrations. So Kelly, I'm going to hand it back to you.
All right, sounds good. So we're going to see more of this firsthand, but I want to set the stage a little bit here. So on the image that you see on this slide, you can actually see an example of a statistical workflow. It's actually a very nice interface to work with. We have the ability to kind of drag and drop. So you can see here, this particular screenshot, we start out with some historical data in the upper left corner. In this case, we're actually breaking it out into both a training and a validation set, and then actually going through and doing some modeling. I won't go through all the specifics here, but I do want to point out that it is very easy to get up and running. Now you can do, I have an example that we're going to see in a moment of a very simple data flow, and also one of a little bit more complex, but it is very easy to bring in. You drag and drop, or actually you click and add the nodes is what you see each of those in there, and then we can connect them up, and basically feeding our data from one node to the next, and with whatever operations go through there. So it can help us do several things, such as doing our data preparation, modeling. It integrates with Spotfire quite nicely. Again, it has that drag and drop interface, but it also does support more advanced scripting. So if you don't come from a programming background and you want to have kind of a low code, no code way to get in and do things, Spotfire is going to give that, or Statistica is going to give you that ability. But also for those of you that need to do something a bit more detailed, or kind of have an idea of what you want to do, it does support R and Python as well. So there's kind of three kind of pieces that I would talk about. So you can, again, we have a view of the application in the top corner. We're going to get into it here shortly, but it can help us with our data management. We can create, extract, prepare our data using kind of there's actually technically two spreadsheet view things within the the kind of more workspace view is where I'm going to be, but we have that ability to do kind of a health check on our data before we bring it into Spotfire, do some take care of some missing values. I'm going to do a very simple deduplication example, but if we need to do more complex transformations, it's going to support that as well. And then from there, we can do some additional feature engineering. We can do some modeling. So there's a lot of different pieces here to help us manage our data, kind of prepare that data, model it, and ultimately get it ready to build out our visuals. All right, so again, you'll see when we get into it, there's a lot of different tools for doing statistical analysis. There's tools for quality control and process improvement, support for custom scripting. And one of the things that we're going to highlight today is how it can fairly seamlessly integrate within Spotfire. So we can actually create functions in that low-code, no-code environment in Statistica, and then import them directly into Spotfire and run them against our data in Spotfire. Or we can completely prepare the data outside of that in Statistica and then publish the data coming out of Statistica into the Spotfire library so that we can consume it from there. So we've got a whole range of options here to deploy and use our analytics solutions. All right, so kind of there's a lot here in Statistica, as you'll see. I kind of am focusing on sort of three areas that I think are meaningful based on what I've seen people asking for in Spotfire over the years and how people are using it. So first of all, Spotfire itself, does make isn't necessarily designed for doing data cleansing. We do have some tools to merge some data in there, and certainly we can write our own data functions and make certain things happen if we need to. But Statistica is going to make that data process a lot easier. It comes with this little node. I just realized I don't have it used in one of my workflows, but it's a little data health check node, so it can at a quick glance let you know about duplicates, outliers, missing values, and you can get that little pick just to kind of make sure it's like, bad data in, the analytics don't, bad data in, bad analytics out, good data in, good analytics out. So just that little bit of a check, and provides us some additional opportunities for transformations. Yes, we can do that in Spotfire, but I actually find that it works a bit better for me in Statistica, and it's just a little bit easier to do. So we have the ability to merge our data sets, do aggregation, ranking, align time series data. There's a whole range of those types of options with very little coding or no coding at all, as the case may be. We also have a lot of tools for doing statistics. Now, if you've used Spotfire, you probably know there are some built-in tools for that, but it's like the tip of the iceberg with what we can do in Spotfire. Getting into Statistica now, we have more options for regression, decision trees, learning. I'll give you a little bit of a peek at the ribbons and some of the different tools when we are in there. So a lot more advanced statistics than what we normally see in Spotfire that we can now bring into Spotfire through its connection to Statistica. And then finally, the other thing that I think is important to this conversation is that ability for us to integrate with Spotfire. So I can actually import data in from the Spotfire library. I can export to the Spotfire library from Statistica. I can also bring data functions that I've created in Statistica and then just import them into Spotfire and use them in Spotfire and just change, what the inputs or outputs of those functions directly within Spotfire. So they've really made it, as Amanda was talking about earlier, kind of this end-to-end point platform where we can kind of operate with the two tools together quite easily.
Great. So we're going to get into the demonstrations now. Kelly's going to switch screens here, but as we had mentioned, both, actually, I'll just skip to the next slide for a quick second. So put together a couple of different use cases for each of the industries that were represented here today on how you could use Statistica within your environment. And so the slide deck will go out after for anybody that's registered, but if you're interested in learning more on this, let us know. But the demonstrations, again, are a little bit focused on oil and gas. However, they're very applicable to the manufacturing, tech, life sciences, and pharma industries as well. So Kelly, with that, I will hand it over to you. You can start sharing your screen.
Let me, and apologies everybody, it might take me a moment to get myself situated. I just literally like less than 30 minutes before we were due to start, my computer decided to take on a mind of its own and restarted itself. So I think I've got everything back up and running, but we'll see if I missed something along the way. So first thing I want you to see here is this is the Statistica environment. And I have a very simple kind of little data pipeline in here where I bring in data which has duplicates. I remove the duplicate cases and then push this back to the Spotfire library. But I wanted to just show you around the interface a little bit first while we're here. And I realize I probably need to go a little bit faster because I can talk for a long time. So it's just notice we're already 25 minutes in. So I won't spend too much time on this. But earlier when I was talking about the different tools that are available in here, I just want to give you a little bit of a view of this. So when we're talking here, we're in workspace mode rather than spreadsheet mode. But if I go to the data tab, you'll see here we have the ability to import data. I can import spreadsheets. I can bring in database from databases. I have not done this piece myself, but we can even use Spotfire data connections. I have imported data from Spotfire into Statistica. So there's a whole range of ability to bring data into our Statistica workspace. We also have the ability to, as I said earlier, to do a data health check, do some transformations. There's a whole series of options within here that are going to give you a lot of tools for that data prep, way more than what we see out of just Spotfire by itself out of the box. If we're getting into statistics, you'll see there's a whole range of options here, and many of these have additional options. So you can see there's, again, Spotfire, nothing against Spotfire. It is outside of maybe my office applications. It is hands down my favorite kind of workplace type of application. If I could apply it to my own personal home data, I probably would do that as well and build all sorts of graphs and stuff about things. But that said, it's not a one tool for everything, and that Statistica is going to bring in those pieces that Spotfire doesn't have. And there is a whole range of options you can see here for doing modeling. The one that I'm going to be using in our predictive one is the generalized linear, but get a feel for the things that we can do with all of this. And then in terms of more advanced pieces, you can see we have the ability to bring in machine learning, neural networks. There's just a lot that we can do with this. So I am just going to be touching on the surface of this, trying to show you a few key things. So to Amanda's point, if you want to know more, let us know, because there's a lot here. So let me start with what I have on this one, which is a very simple pipeline. So even if you don't have a lot of experience with Statistica to start, you have this ability to bring these in. So here, for example, you can see IHS headers with duplicates. So this is just some well headers, but it could be manufacturing data, it could be life sciences, it could be any number of things. We can add by just going to our data source and selecting, in this case, I selected files, it brings in this node. And you can see here on this node, if I take a look here, if I view the document, I can see that this is 32 variables or 32 columns, 69, and it just has some well header information here. Now, let's say I know that there are duplicates in there. Maybe I've used my data health check node to identify duplicates, but in this case, there are some duplicates. So I can bring in the filter duplicate cases into here, which I've obviously already done. You can see here, you can actually, just if this line wasn't here, I could just connect these start to finish by just dragging and dropping, much like you might do. And, there's other applications that behave the same way. Once I've brought this into here, it has settings. So each node has its own set of settings. In this filter duplicate cases node, if we click on this little gear icon here, this one's a fairly simple one. I wanted a fairly easy example. And you can see here what I'm looking at are duplicate UWIs. I can limit that against certain cases. Remember, cases are the rows within our data. You can, all of this, this one is a simple node, but some of these are very complex, as we'll probably see some examples in our second one. So then from there, I am outputting to the Spotfire library. So if we go in and take a look here, you can see that is running to, in my Spotfire library, I have a folder called Statistica Demo right off the top level of my library. And then I'm outputting this as an SBDF file. So and that then that stands for Spotfire binary data format. So that can actually then be ingested into an analytics piece, or as you'll see, we're going to be able to call this filter duplicate cases into Spotfire and use it from within there. So I've had to tell it where my server's running in this case, because it's more of a demo machine. It's running on the same one as on the local host. I've got my client ID and secret. And so if I want to run this, I can just go ahead and I'm just going to do a run all, and you'll actually see it runs start to finish. As it runs, notice my filter duplicate cases here. If I take a look, this is the output coming from it. And I can see instead of the 69 cases, I have 66 cases. I actually also told it in the settings here to, I believe it's under my parameters. And actually, yes, here I have it told it to create the duplicate spreadsheet. So I've actually captured those duplicates as well. So if I go and look at my reporting documents, I can see in here, oh, there's my filter duplicate cases. There's the 3 duplicates that it has removed from that. So very easy interface to get in and drag and drop. You don't have to go in and code. I didn't have to write the logic to filter the duplicate cases. I just went in and configured that node. Now I want to show you on the Spotfire side of things what that looks like. So let me go to my Statistica deduplicate example, and you can see here's my original data table. And so this one actually is using different data than what was in that little sample where I had the 3 duplicate rows. You can see here, I've just done a quick couple of visuals to point out that we have duplicate data. Here I have my across table showing the UWIs, and for each UWI a row count, and clearly and it's sorted in descending order by row count. So clearly we have these duplicates here. Here, if you also want to see more of a visual rather than a tabular format, there's my UWIs, and all of these over here represent those duplicate cases. So once I've built out that data function in Statistica, if I want to bring it into Spotfire, assuming that I've deployed things and my admin has added that functionality to my Spotfire environment, if I go to Tools, there's now a Statistica option under Tools, and if I choose that option, I've already brought it in, so I won't bring it in again, but you can see the functions that I've brought in. It's just a matter of clicking on plus workspace from local disk. I can see what I've brought in here. I can see the various Statistica workspaces that I can then bring in. I've already done that in this case. Again, this deduplicate data. A little bit of a tongue twister for me there. So now if I want to use it, a couple of different things. I could go to my data and data function properties, and it shows up. So instead of having to go in and spend all that time to write the Python code or the R code or whatever it is that I might be writing, I just had to go in, drag and drop, configure a couple of nodes in there, and now I've got this data function that I can use directly from within Spotfire. If I go in and take a quick look at the parameters, on this one I've kept it pretty simple with an input parameter, but you can see I can tell it which table I want to deduplicate, which in this case is my Statistica demo data table. And then on the output side of things, I can tell it if I want to create a new data table. I've already got a data table with duplicates removed, using very descriptive names here. And I can just rerun this again and overwrite it, or I could create a new data table. If we take a look at our data canvas here, you'll actually see it gets added here under data functions. This is another place where I can view it. If I can get it to not, of course it's, well, there it goes. It's just being a little bit, my environment is being a little fussy on me. So I'm going to turn this, I think it's locked up on me. All right. Well, let's see. It is my remote environment for whatever reason. So my personal machine decided to reboot itself this morning. Now, apparently, my remote machine connection has been lost. So, oh, and it came back. Good. I was like trying to think of how I have a backup for the second one locally, but not that one. So let's get back into here and let's just show this one here. So here you can see there's my function. So there's my function. Here's the inputs that are coming in. This is yet another place where I can click on this gear icon and tell it what I want it to use as the inputs. In my example, I set in Statistica, set it to deduplicate on UWI, but if you might be changing that around and you want to make it a little bit more multi-purpose, I could even have it choose, I could even treat that as a parameter. In this case, my input parameter is the incoming table, and on the other side, there's my data table with it filtered and outputting that. Just to give you an idea of what the type of, what it's saved instead of having to write all that code. If we scroll up here, you can actually see, it's actually generated the script. It's got all of the functionality built into that. You can see everything that goes along with that. So instead of having to write all that out myself and or write my own Python function or go find one in the community and then try to wrestle with it to get it to work in here, I'm able to bring that in quite seamlessly. If I then run this, which it's already been run here, but you can just go ahead and in through the inputs on the other, run it. Afterwards, as you can see here, here's what it looked like before. After I run it, it does create another data table based on the way that I set it up. So if we go look at my data table properties, also, I guess could have shown you that through the canvas. I have to train myself out of that because I know with Spotfire, we're moving away from the pop-ups and more into the canvas. But you can see there's my two tables. And if I take a look at it after the duplicates are removed, notice that none of these have a row count of 2. All of the duplicates are removed. So I can then reuse that against any data set I want. I've already brought it into Spotfire. So that's my first quick, easy demo. I suppose I should, Amanda, do you want me to continue on to the next one, or are there any questions at this point on with what we're seeing so far in Statistica and Spotfire?
I don't see any questions right now, Kelly, so you
Awesome.
can go to your next demo.
Yeah, I will keep going then. So that's kind of what I wanted you to see from this is how easy it is to start using it. It really is just a matter of creating those workspaces within Statistica, and they can be quite simple, like this one here, where we just have a couple of nodes. Obviously, as we saw earlier, there's several different tools within here. But if I want to do something more complex, I do have one that I kind of put together, and let me talk through this one a little bit. So this one, and in the interest of time, I won't go back and show all the original data, but so this is for predicting when a pump is going to fail. So we have some training and validation data that we've been using where we've got sensor data. If I take a quick look at the sensor data, you'll see that we have for a variety of pumps, I have a timestamp. We're taking sensor readings from those every 5 minutes. I've got pressure, temperature, vibration, flow, motor amps and such, and I just have those coming in. Also, along with this data, we have the service history. So for each of our pumps, we have 8 pumps that we have data in there. And the main thing to note here is just we have an indication of our last service date. And then we also, for this existing data, we have the history of failures. So I can see for each of these during that time frame, and this is just, sample data for a month's worth of, or maybe even a little bit less than a month's worth of data. We have when things were failing. So what we can then do is, first of all, merge these together. So I've merged in the sensor data with the service history, and you can see here in the merge variables on that, what I'm matching on, in this case, asset ID, and then what I'm outputting with the all data from the original sensor data with the last service data appended, or not really appended, added as an additional column to that. I also then bring in the failures. In this case, because if we look at things, we can actually, I don't want to overemphasize when a failure is coming in. So I actually, once we have a failure, I took a subset of the data. So this is just, several of the tools. I then want to start to understand, let me just switch to transformation of variables because I know I'm going to run out of time. Because I know when the failures occurred, for each row of data in there, I can go in and get, when did the failure occur prior to that, and trying to be able to predict, look for, when does the failure occur, and being able to see if failure is going to occur 7 days beforehand. And then in this case, I broke it out into a training flag, just kind of randomly breaking it out, but there's actually nodes in here that'll help you break your data out into a training set and a validation set for your model. Point being, though, I've had the ability to add some additional columns. So if I were to run to here, so I'm going to run to this node, you'll see it now outputs with, in addition to the original pieces there, I now have the last service date, when a failure occurred, and then for each reading that was taken here, the days until failure, whether it will fail within 7 days of that reading, and then whether I've made it part of the training sample or the validation sample, essentially. So in this case, I've used one, there's several tools here. For the purposes of this, I just did a generalized linear model. We can go in and take a look here, and you can see I've been able to choose what type of model, what type of distribution. And if I take a quick look here at my specifications, this kind of just gives you an idea of what we've got here. But the main thing I want you to see is under the model specification, I'm able to go in and say, what is it I'm trying to predict? Well, I'm trying to predict, will it fail within 7 days based on when failures did occur? And based off of these readings here, pressure, temp, vibration flow, motor amps, I maybe could have used last service date, may or may not have been applicable, but in my case, I just went with the sensor readings on that. So then Statistica does all the work for me then. I basically, after creating this data pipeline, running this through, now it basically creates the model, and now gives me that piece of information that says, based on what we're seeing, this is where we see the kind of warning signs. So I also fed in a set of new sensor data and service history minus the failures, because obviously in this case we don't have the failures, and we can see here it has for some additional pumps, we have just the sensor readings and the service history. So we run all this through, and then it's going to output the predictions about whether things will fail. So that's kind of gives you we've kind of done the range of things here in Statistica. One fairly simple workflow, one more advanced, kind of going through that whole predictive modeling. What I would like to show you in the remaining 5 or so minutes that I've got here, because I'm sure we want to leave some time for things at the end, I wanted to show you how you then might be able to take this and use this in Spotfire. So I have another Statistica dashboard in here using a set of new sensor data that I ran through here. And in this kind of area here, you can see we have, I think there's 5 pumps here. I could bring up my filters, but you can see we have the various pumps here, pressure, temp, the same kind of columns that we saw within Statistica. And then I just created a fairly simple kind of traffic light format here with my graphical table showing the status of the pumps at various points of time. So on March 1st, using that model that I developed in Statistica, everything here green, pumps 1 through 5, everything looks good, no issues. When we get to March 14th, pump 3, based on that model that we developed in Statistica, now it's starting to maybe show some indicators that it's building up towards a failure. By the time we get to March 20th, pump 3 has in fact failed, and pump 4 is now itself starting to show. So I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what things might look like along the way. And let me move the controls out of the way here. So here I also, just to kind of give you an idea, if we're going along, we may not even realize until it's failed that there's an issue. So I have a simple line chart here showing the pressure readings for these 5 pumps over time. And instead of trying to show you the whole thing at once, which, I just wanted to kind of have a little window. We're going along, everything's seeming, looking pretty good. by the way, this is currently showing me temp, but it could be any of those other variables that seem to be, that are indicators of a potential failure. We're going along, everything's fine. And then when we get to about that March 14th, from, here early on March 14th, it's not until the 15th that we might start to see like, oh, wait, that curve, pump three's kind of going off on its own direction. But here around the 14th, where we might not even know there's an issue, and it could even last longer than a day where there's the signs of failure, but we're able to pick up on that 14th based on that model that we've generated and see, hey, pump three, the lines might look okay here on the 14th, but hey, we think there's, potentially something starting to show. And then as we continue on, certainly then it becomes very apparent that pump three, the one in red here, has in fact failed, and pump four itself is starting to show signs. So the nice thing is we're able to pick up on that earlier on, based on, just that model and being able to kind of get some advanced notice with that Statistica piece. So that's I guess that's the end of that demo there, just kind of showing you a couple of ways where we can kind of do a quick start, low code, no code. But for those that may have more need for more advanced capabilities, we can create more detailed pipelines in Statistica and bring all of that Statistica capabilities into Spotfire, either by importing the data functions in or using it as part of our flow, publishing to the Spotfire library, and then reading those, through our Spotfire dashboards.
Kelly,
So Amanda, I'm going to stop.
Kelly,
Oh, go ahead.
we have a question. It says, what is the reason for pump three failure? Are you able to see that in the data?
To be honest, I didn't actually dig in to see why it was failing. I can tell you that we were starting to see increased temperatures. We were starting to see increased vibrations, but I did not diagnose why it failed. So that's a great question. And that would be kind of, I guess, the next step is to go in and see why it did.
And there's another question, Kelly, that I had was, can you set alerts? So when it turns to yellow through Spotfire, is there the ability to alert?
Well, so potentially, yeah, I'm trying to think of a couple of different ways I might do that. One, we could use Spotfire automation and have it send out that kind of traffic light dashboard that I had there, where we see the green, 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 yellow, and then so that could go out on a daily basis as part of automation. Spotfire does have an alerting framework. It's available through the community. I haven't directly worked with it myself in a while, but I did set it up at a client's for a client last summer. It potentially could, basically through automation, what it does is you tell it what you're kind of watching for, and then it can send out those alerts around that. So either through automation services directly and just sending out reports that you then go, hey, that's now yellow, let's go look at that, or potentially through the alerting framework, you could do that. I don't have that illustrated in here. That functionality, I'm trying to think of a way I could do that with Statistica, and nothing directly comes to mind, but certainly we could build in that early warning system to send that notification out.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then we have another question, Kelly. Any prerequisites for Statistica to be installed to use in conjunction with Spotfire? So I'll speak to the license.
That's what I was
So
going to say. The only one I know is licensing, so I'm going to hand that off to you, Amanda.
yeah, so Statistica is part of the Industry Pro license piece. So typically people are licensed for an analyst license or a business author, which is now moved to analyst, and our Industry Pro license would be required. Any technical prerequisites, Kelly?
Other than just, we're running it on the same VM. I was not the one that installed it here, but it was actually pretty straightforward. I did set up the deployment on the Spotfire server. So basically you have to have the license and have to have hardware sufficient to run it, so, but outside of that, none really. I mean, it's just, you have to have the license, and it's not like, so like if you're doing something with Copilot, we do have to set up some additional pieces. This is just literally, and just out of the box, you get the install files based on your license, and you can install it on a machine, assuming you have the right hardware to support it.
Great.
Oh,
How
how many data functions are built into Statistica? Phil, maybe do you know that question? I think there's a lot. I think you might know the actual number maybe, or is it something like 1,000 plus? Oh, I can't remember. It's a lot.
It's 16,000 plus.
Thank you. I was gonna say, I think you, and I knew you knew the number. I knew it was in the thousands. So that's a lot of functionality just available right out of the box. So thank you for referencing that, because I just showed you a little piece of what's there, but it is, you can see I'm excited about this. So there are, in my mind, kind of the trifecta for data analytics. For me, it's Spotfire for doing, the analytics and doing the visualizations, potentially some data virtualization, because that still has a place that near and dear to me, to being able to combine all the data that's all over the place. And now with Statistica, it just kind of completes that trifecta, and we have that advanced statistics capabilities, data prep. It's really exciting, I have to say. So I have to give a big shout out to Spotfire for now giving us access to it with the license, of course. But it's
well,
pretty
and
exciting.
Kelly, I think just the data deduplication, right? The amount of code it takes to actually try to do that. And I think we hear often from clients that that's a big problem for them. There's this duplicate data. They've got to clean it up. So even if you just took that one aspect alone is pretty powerful. So thank you for those wonderful demonstrations today, Kelly. So I wanted to see at this time, we got another question. Can you touch upon the scheduling of automated functions?
Sure. So a quick note on that. So the Spotfire server itself, out of the box, has two capabilities that can be managed through a node manager. So that in some environments, I have seen that running on the same VM as the server, but ideally you have a second kind of auxiliary server running your node manager, and automation services needs to be set up on that. Through that, then based on the users that have the ability to use automation, they can go in and create jobs. So a common one that I see is, let's say every Monday, I'm responsible for bringing up our Spotfire reports, exporting out some PDFs out of that to show kind of the current status of things, and sending off an email to a broader team so that they when they come in, they've got their Monday morning report showing them, all of the current metrics that they might be interested in. If I am looking at Spotfire and I have the ability to build a job, I could go in and create a prepared report, first of all, that basically kind of creates that framework or blueprint for that report. And then I can set it up to load the data, export out the PDF, and then assuming that my Spotfire server is configured with an SMTP server for sending out emails, I can then craft that email, and then I can test that out on my own analyst client. But then if I want to kind of set it up so then I have two options. One, I could go in and just every Monday morning, instead of going through all that, 2 hours of work to get all those reports out, I hit a button and it does that for me. Or I can actually shift that over to the Spotfire server along with the node manager that's running in tandem with it, that can have automation services. And now I can set it up to run run that job, daily, weekly, whatever schedule I want. So the server and automation services is what allows you to do the scheduling piece of it. So long story short, it's the server you can schedule those automated jobs through that.
Thanks, Kelly. Are you any more questions for those of you on the call today? And if not to worry, we're not going anywhere. So we're here. Feel free. They'll have in the slide, you can reach out and contact us at any time. We're happy as, a next step, if you're interested, if this resonated with you and you can see value in having this within your organization, reach out to us. You can request a workshop. We can support you. We can do a hands-on workshop. Kelly can do training on this very effectively. We can even help you build a proof of concept within your environment using our 10K challenge and actually build it and prove it out so that you have a really great business case to share. Or we can do a deeper technical dive, and we can go into the technical back end of this and show you the details. So anyway, we are happy to engage further if you're interested. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And with that, and with no more questions, we can wish everyone a great afternoon. And thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, and thank you for the questions. And we hope you enjoyed the presentation. Have a great day, everybody.